Please enjoy this talk given at the Austin Center for Spiritual Living, where we live and teach the principles of science of mind and spirit. For more information, visit austincsl.org.
Reverend Mary Schaefer, an ordained minister of the Centers for Spiritual Living, has been a student of science of mind since 1982, and is well-grounded in metaphysics and science of mind principles. Reverend Mary graduated from the Holmes Institute, where she received a master's degree in consciousness studies and was trained as a science of mind and spirit minister. Her ministerial license and ordination is through the Centers for Spiritual Living, an international organization over 250,000 strong. In addition, Reverend Mary holds a BA and an MBA degree and served in the corporate world for many years. Her purpose in life is creating a safe place where we can grow in love and joy. She envisions a community where everyone owns a piece of this vision, and shared leadership is practiced at all levels, a truly growing a community that experiences the unity that is the very presence of God. Please help me welcome Reverend Mary Schaefer. Yay.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. In the interest of shared leadership, perhaps I should tell you, you have 3 parts in today's message. So I'm going to tell you what they are, and we can practice, and then when they come up, you'll know exactly what to do, all right? So first part, affirmation, God is my source.
God is my source.
One more time.
God is my source.
All right, you've got that one. Second part, delay is not denial.
Delay is not denial.
One more time with feeling. Delay is not denial. Okay, third one. I make a difference.
I make a difference.
One more time.
I make a difference.
All right, now your job is to watch for when those things come up and just say it, all right? Just like it was an amen. When you hear it, it's your turn. So I'm just so happy to be here this morning, and what a great day. And thank you, Andy, for reading from the Gettysburg Address. Did y'all have to memorize that when you were a kid?
Yeah.
Anybody say it along with him, just briefly? It's something that we're familiar with, but we forget. You know, we lose that over time. I was actually in Gettysburg one 4th of July. It was 3rd of July. We saw the fireworks, and it was fantastic. So, well, today my talk is from nothing to insight, spark. Now, in the Centers for Spiritual Living, we are doing a series this year on values. So if you've been following along, I'll tell you what we've done, and if you haven't been, I'll tell you what you've missed. So January we talked about spiritual living. We learn and practice our philosophy. February, anybody remember February? It's been so long ago. February, creating diversity. Our value is spiritual living as diversity and inclusivity. We value, embrace, and celebrate individual uniqueness and contribution of all people. Okay, March. March wasn't so long ago, you might remember that one. Maybe not, it was expanded horizons. And we know how we expand horizons. So the value, spiritual living through education and continuous improvement. We walk a path of awakening, growth, and spiritual deepening through classes. Oh, by the way, there's a class coming up. Okay, April. April, you might remember, too. This was the evolution of new thought, spiritual living through transformation and evolution. We do deep interpersonal work of self-discovery and healing to reveal the greater truth of our divinity. And now we're at May. Exploration of imagination. So, spiritual living through creativity. We allow the ongoing activity of spirit into our hearts, minds, and activities to bring forth new forms and expressions to inspire and guide. So that's where we are right now. I'll give you a peek for June. June is you hold the key. It's about accountability. We account for our activities. disclose them in transparent manner, and accept responsibility for our actions and obligations entrusted to us. But we can't do this unless we go back to creativity, right? Because we have to create something. So from nothing to insight. So on the first day, there was nothing. So God created light. And on the second day, there was still nothing, but you could see that there was nothing. So truly we know that there is never nothing. Is that not so? There is never nothing. So let's just cross that part out and just go right to the insight. So creation does not mean making something out of nothing. This is what Ernest Holmes tells us. He says, creation is the passing of spirit into form, hence, teaching symbol, spirit descending into form. You've got that part now. This is really good. This is going well. Okay, spirit cannot change, for being all, there is nothing for it to change into. This is self-evident to him. This is in the Science of Mind textbook, by the way, page 83. Check it out. So what I want to tell you is there is a creative spark within each one of us. And this is the spark that created us. It moves through us, in us, as us, all of the time. God is my source.
God is my source.
All right. God is my source. That's what that means. That divine spark is in you every moment, all of the time, even when you're thinking those thoughts that you really don't want to manifest. God is my source. God is created through. Whoo, you guys are on it. So we need to choose to use that. We call upon that. We allow that to come through us. So this, again, Ernest Holmes. By the way, Ernest Holmes is the founder of, wrote the Science Mind textbook and the founder of the Centers for Spiritual Living way back when, almost 100 years ago now. Wow. So Ernest Holmes tells us this. He says, there's an irresistible, universal, and divine urge. Anybody have that divine urge? Okay, I'll tell you what it's for. To be happy, to be whole, and to express the fullness of life. God is my source.
God is my source.
All right, it is back of every invention. It proclaims itself through every creative endeavor. It has produced sages, saints, saviors, and will, when permitted, create a new world in which war, poverty, sickness, and famine have disappeared. Wow. So, no one wanted Star Wars when George Lucas came up with the idea. He started shopping it to the studios, but they were more interested in the Taxi Driver Network and Serpico. Do you remember anybody remember those? Okay. Anyhow, Hollywood was on the edge for edgy drama. That was what they were going for, not these popcorn flicks in the, far beyond. So, as the young director had conceived it, it was a film that could not be made. It could not be made. First of all, they didn't want it. And secondly, the technology wasn't available. Have you all seen the first Star Wars movie? Has technology advanced? Some of that is through the work of George Lucas, in the fact that he, out of that, developed what? Industrial light and magic. It sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Industrial light and magic. So that's where some of this came from. He had to invent the camera. He had to invent the technology. He had to invent that. And how come? How could he do that? God is his source, right?
God is his source.
All right. So we know what happened. He adapted, and it came to fruition. So it's the first employees of Industrial Light and Magic were recent college graduates. Isn't that a time when we know that we don't know that we can do anything, right? I mean, we know that anything can happen. So at that point, people started inventing. They had recent college graduates, oh, by the way, and a few dropouts, with rich imaginations and nimble fingers. They were tasked with building Star Wars creatures, spaceships, circuit boards, and cameras. And this is how we were transported into that galaxy far, far away. And this might be a good time to mention that back in that time, there was a president of Religious Science International whose name was David Walker. And he ran into George Lucas in a movie theater lobby. And this was shortly after the New York Times had run a photo of George Lucas and his son with a Science of Mind textbook on the bookcase behind them. God is my source. God is my source. And Dr. Wachter mentioned this photo to George Lucas, whereupon Lucas's companion said, "Remember the book I gave you by Ernest Holmes?" And Lucas answered, "Well, where do you think the Force came from?" So we live in a physical universe where nothing is lost. The energy that makes up the universe is always constant. Everything is always moving. Everything is constant. Nothing that we do goes unattended or unnoticed. It is absolutely part of who and what we are. So our energy is always fully available, fully available. Have you ever been like really tired, like I am so exhausted, and then somebody calls you and invites you to dinner or to a movie that you've been wanting to see, and suddenly it's like, I think I can manage enough energy for that, right? It's like that energy wells up for us, from us, as us. So, or have you ever created something, the artists that create and say, I've lost track of time, just getting involved and lost in that. Maybe it's getting lost in the practicing for the marathon, or getting lost in creating a work of art, or getting lost in that. That creative energy is just there and flowing all of the time through us. And that physical energy is infinite. Infinite. Life is forever creative and creating. Not only human beings, but everything in nature has that creative energy. That idea that they want to blossom, to bring forth. The rain falls and the ground is inspired to bring up whatever has been planted there. And this is true in your life too. The rain falls and we are inspired. We're inspired by that energy. We're inspired and we bring forth that which we have planted. Which reminds me, we should probably watch what we're planting, just in case. Okay, so if this is true, if we are always creating and always creative, then what happens? How come it doesn't always look like it? That's the question. Why doesn't it always look like it? Meister Eckhart said, God is at home. It is we who've gone out for a walk. God is at home. It is we who've gone out for a walk. That creative spark within us cannot be extinguished. It cannot be extinguished. It is our attitude, though, that can kind of form a little restriction. You get that, I can't. Maybe some of you, like me, were told, you really can't sing. You know, just open your mouth and form the words, but don't actually let anything come out. So that kind of stifles your creativity a little bit. Anybody have that experience? Or you can't paint?
Yeah, they told me I couldn't sing.
Yeah, well, boy, were they wrong. I'm so glad you didn't believe them. Absolutely, absolutely. Sometimes we fear our judgment. We fear our own judgment. We fear the judgment of others. We lose our creative confidence. We lose that creative confidence that we have as a child when we think we can do anything, right? And we may fear our creativity because it is unlimited. And there's so many things that we can do. And so it's easier sometimes just to shut that down a little bit. It's like, oh, I can't do all of that, so I'm just going to not do anything. So again, Ernest Holmes, he tells us this in the Help for Today. Spirit, which is the creative life principle, is forever flowing through us. But we've been given a power to impede or stop its progress. We know that we can tie a cord tightly around our arm and so inhibit the circulation of blood, that congestion, stagnation, and infection will follow. In a like manner, through our thinking process, our ideas and our convictions, we use the tourniquets of negative thoughts and block the flow of the creative life through us. Do you get that picture? So creative passion kind of ebbs and flows. Sometimes it feels like it's disappeared and it won't even return. And the dangerous part comes from giving that up. I don't know if you've heard the saying, if you're going through hell, don't stop. So if you call it quits and accept the fact that you don't have it, then You don't, because that's the way the truth works. If you say, I can't sing, universe says, oh, all right, can't sing, give her some of that, right? Or whatever it happens to be. So we have that creative impulse, and it's always operating. I want to tell you about a revolutionary named Tommy Joshua. And he's paving the way to recreate and create a new paradigm of how to live and exist based on the land. He was raised in a poverty-ridden neighborhood, and he witnessed social injustice. But brave examples in his own family inspired him to be part of the solution as a community organizer and educator, and nothing could stand in his way for long. He moved forward. He recalls stories of his Aunt Vi, known to be the first person to plant vegetables around their neighborhood in Philadelphia. Cousin Vi ran a tight ship. Inspired by these stories, Tommy reflected on how his family's culture and values had a deep impact on his work. This is what he says. He says, we were filled with creativity and wanted to have fun and solve problems. That was my childhood, running the streets. I covered every square inch. Every block was a new adventure, a new village, a new place to build, new youth, stories, and sounds. And then for 3.5 years, he battled leukemia. At one point, his family was called in to say goodbye. And Tommy remembers being in the hospital, way, way high up in the hospital. And he would look down and he would see little dots running around, going into stores, moving around. From that vantage point of being up high, he was looking down on little tiny people running around. And he said, wow, this is different. All of a sudden, he had an infection. He was in that state for about 3 or 4 days, and he couldn't move. And he had no power. And then he came out of it. And what he learned there, that he had a feeling of profound fortification that took place, where he wasn't going to be afraid of life anymore, because he said, I don't have to be. Nothing is worth more than living a free life and following your heart. So he was awakened, and with a second chance, he decided to do something. During that time, the city was facing issues with food deserts, problems with gangs, cuts in social services, shut down of 2 schools in the neighborhood. And Tommy gathered an initial group of volunteers and talked them into joining his movement to create a garden, and they selected a place. So people joined, and the garden was to be on 16th and Ridge. And what? Suddenly there was an obstacle in his way, and they were not allowed to put a garden in there. But I want to tell you a secret. Delay is not denial. Delay is not denial. All right, delay is not denial. And so there was a second area where they were allowed to build a garden. They built a garden, they built a school, they had people coming, and over 3.5 years, they distributed more than 3 tons of locally grown vegetables, created educational programs. All of this with a person who said, I have an idea, and other people joined in and says, yes to that energy. And so this is what he says. He says, we need to let the soil and plants recharge our DNA. We need to create a new paradigm of how we need to live and exist based on the land. This is the future of what we would like to see for this place they're calling Peacetown. We'd like to see a new society develop around ecology, self, love, hard work, creativity, unity, vision. We have an abundance of creativity, safety, and security. We know that we're capable of doing it. We know that we're capable of doing it. Human beings have to be reminded of themselves and pushed to greatness. You see, he was able to accomplish what he wanted without sitting by the sidelines. So what did he learn? Delay is not denial. So as we know, most people are born creative. We revel in imaginary play. Anybody have imaginary friends? Yeah, I didn't have imaginary friends, but my sister's imaginary friends were, Fifi was one of them. I remember Fifi. Yeah, they were really interesting characters. Imaginations are great. So over time, we kind of forget about that. But that creative spark is still within us. Why? God is my source, and there's nothing that can stop that. So we need to rekindle. Rekindle. That doesn't have anything to do with a Kindle, by the way. It's just a rekindle. So rekindling the spark. We have to be creative in our natural state. And we start by not being afraid when the creativity dims. Not being afraid when something comes into our way. Not being afraid when the shadow is cast, because that light source is always there. So we move forward in that. I love that movie, Being There. Have you ever watched that movie, Being There? It kind of shows my age. I saw it when it first came out. Being There. Oh, my gosh. If you haven't seen it, please go see it. There is a man in there called Chance the gardener, who actually is a gardener, by the way, but they think he's a high muckety-muck and take his political advice. And this is what he tells them. He says, as long as the roots are not severed, all is well, and all will be well in the garden. In the garden, growth has its seasons. First comes spring and summer, but then we have fall and winter. And then we get spring and summer again. Yes, there will be growth in the spring. Chance the gardener. He was brilliant, wasn't he? So society has made us believe that something is not creative or beautiful unless it's recognized. This might be another reason why we kind of lose that spark. Well, if nobody's going to notice what I'm doing, why do I do it? Why do I do it? You know, why do I polish the silver if nobody's going to notice? Why? Why do I sweep up if nobody's going to notice? Why do I pick up the trash if nobody's going to notice? Why do we do that? And this is often the case for those of us that are in service. It's like, nobody will notice this. So I want to tell you a little story about a mother. And this mother, as so many mothers, was not particularly feeling appreciated. Any mothers have that? So one night, she was at dinner with a group and celebrating the return of a friend from England. She says, Janice had gotten back from a fabulous trip, and she was going on and on about the hotel she stayed in, and I was sitting there looking around at all the others that were put together so well. And then there was me. It was hard not to compare and feel sorry for myself. I was feeling pretty pathetic when Janice turned to me with a lovely, beautiful wrapped package and said, I brought you this. It was a book on the great cathedrals of Europe, and I wasn't exactly sure why she'd given it to me, but then I read the inscription. It says, to Charlotte, with admiration for the greatness of what you are building when no one sees. And so in the day ahead, she absolutely devoured the book and would discover what would be 4 life-changing truths. No one can say who built the great cathedrals. We have no record of their names. These builders gave their whole lives for something they would not see finished in their lifetimes. They made great sacrifices, expected no credit. And the passion of their building was fueled by the faith that the eyes of God saw everything. And there's a story about that where one of the carvers was carving a bird on a beam. And this beam was going to go into the ceiling and nobody would see it. And so someone else came along and said, why are you doing that? Why are you spending so much time carving that bird into a beam that'll be covered by the roof? And the workman said, because I know it's there. Because I know it's there. And so those builders that we have no idea who they were or that they never saw their cathedrals completed, if you've gone to someplace where you see a great cathedral and just are in awe at the immenseness, at the beauty, at the craftsmanship that has lasted all these hundreds of years, you will know what I mean. We don't know who those people are, but what they did made a difference. What I do makes a difference.
What I do makes a difference.
It's interesting, we don't necessarily believe that one quite as much, do we? All right, let's give it another shot. What I do makes a difference. So remember that what you create is not you creating, but it's that divine spirit creating through you. You're the medium, how the universe works. We're here as vessels of that divine creative spirit. We're here at the pleasure of that divine creative spirit, and we might as well have a good time because that's how spirit expresses itself. That is how spirit expresses itself. So put your beliefs aside and transcend your thinking mind. Just get out of that and be open to what Spirit has for you and reclaim that creative confidence that you had as a child. That creative confidence. I can paint. I can draw. Look at my picture. It's on the refrigerator. Spirit is always calling forth our creative expression, and only we can dim the spark. And when the ebbs occur, there's ways to rekindle that spark. Ways to rekindle that spark. I have a poem I want to leave you with. I love this. This is called Where Figs Grow, and it's by Miriam Ava. And this is what she says. Out of nothing, something emerges. Swiftly matter fills air. That nothing, of course, is always something, and that something is never nothing. Empty space is vast and full of life, ready to bloom, nectar in the ether. There is a sweet nothingness in your life on the verge to emerge. Right now, taking shape on earth, pouring forth from the pulse of creation. Dip your hand into the cosmic honey. It's where figs grow. Empty space is vast and full of life, nectar in the ether. There's a sweet nothingness in your life on the verge to emerge. And let's take that thought into our meditation today. And so I just invite you to join me in this meditation. We sit alone and together just for a few minutes, eyes open, eyes closed. Sitting in spirit. And so just remembering this breath of life. And just allow yourself to rest, just knowing for the next few minutes that all is well. No rush. No right way, no wrong way. Nothing you need to do or make happen. Just be in that present moment. So simply inhabit that space of willingness right now. That space where you are open to that creative energy that is always moving through you. Willingness to be shown. Willingness to take some small step. Willingness to fan the spark of that desire within you. And so ask yourself just now, what is your soul purpose? What is your soul's deepest desire? Perhaps your desire is to sing a song, to be of service, to dance, to write that book, simply to love and to be loved. Perhaps your desire is about world peace. Whatever it is bigger than you. It is greater than you are. And in this moment, you don't need to see the bigness or the totality of it. You just need to be in that. Simply see, feel, taste. Be willing to be led by your soul desire. And now to fan the spark. Watch it become a small flame, becoming a larger flame, that divine spark within you. And allow it to become a raging fire in your own time, in your own way. And any time you feel yourself distracted by thoughts of I can't, I won't, I don't, she doesn't, it won't happen. Just let those go. You can throw them into the fire and bring your attention back to your willingness to see, to feel, to be. And then fan that spark with your breath, your intention, your blessing, your willingness. And feel that growing power in you, as you, right now. All of life is conspiring to support you at every turn. All of life is conspiring to support you, to help you grow into the fullness of who you are and who you are becoming. And you may notice, you may feel that this is not only for you, but it is larger than that. It is for the highest good of all. And it's being served through you now. And so from this highest, broadest, deepest, widest dimension you can muster, send forth your blessing into this world. Send forth your willingness to be exactly who you came here to be. Send forth your willingness to be of service. And allow yourself to be prospered. Welcome those opportunities, large and small, as you send forth your blessings to all of creation, knowing that they are returned to you, magnified and multiplied by your willingness to be an instrument of the divine. And so may all beings be blessed by your willingness to do this. And with gratitude, I simply let it be, and so it is.
So it is.